Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I've got Mr. Stephen Orr himself back again. We're here to talk about seasonal trends and what to look for. It's interesting, Stephen. You have voiced to me that in the summertime, right, you're more of a fan with stocks because of volume. So let's talk a little bit about that before we talk about what's coming up here in the fall season.
Yeah, it's very simple. If you look at it from the future side of it, from the ag side, right, you've got the planting season and you got the harvest season. And for me, this is all about the summertime, right? And when you're looking at summertime, there's so much going on, right? It's the holidays, it's the 4th of July, picnics, Labor Day, Memorial Day. People are out and about. They're not trading as much, right? And especially nowadays, but they're trading on their phones, their mobile phones, right? And they're looking for things. And that term right there helps me when I'm looking at Twitter feeds and I'm looking at fundamental data of stocks. Guess what? It's the summertime for that. I always find the seasonality of stocks is always 3 times a year. That's the deep winter, because that's the holiday season, right? Aunt Grandma sent me 5 shares of Microsoft, and a lot of news happens around that time. You'll see early spring the same thing. You'll see also when it comes around tax time and also with earnings. So that leaves a big hole in the middle of the summer, and we're seeing that already. And when you see low volume but high volatility we we're seeing right now, that's awesome, right? Because you can make money off that, right? When you see a lot of the volatility going crazy, the VIX is higher now. That makes it a lot easier to spot trends, and the trend right now is obviously to the downside. There's some profit taking going on right now. People are just bored. We've had all-time highs on the markets, and so people are a little bit nervous. We have obviously a campaign coming up, election coming up. It's starting to see a little clearer on that picture. So people are a little bit malaise out there. So they're trading a little bit, right? And that's why I like the summertime a whole lot better for stocks than I do with futures. But here it comes, right?
Oh, well, that's absolutely true. So, in the summertime, do you specifically go after like top stocks, or is it different for you every summer?
Oh yeah, of course, 100%. I think the trend is your friend, right? And one of the trends that we've had in the last has been tech stocks, and I still believe that tech is going to be the leader out of this. It got us into the mess, it got us out of the mess, it got us back into the mess, but it's also going to be the leader out of the mess too right now. And I think we're seeing AI and these big trends. That's all going to be even bigger in the future. Nothing has changed there, and there's still going to be some stalwarts: Apple, Nvidia, Google. We already know those companies, and those companies aren't slowing down their growth. They're growing bigger and bigger and bigger. How do we know that? Because the government's trying to stop them in antitrust. So we know that that's okay, right? But the world is bigger in the stock market than just a few, the Magnificent Seven, as we call them now. The
Right.
world of stock market is everything. And when there's 9,500 trading instruments just in the stock market alone, the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, there's a lot of things to look for. In the past, it has been what? It's the summertime, so energy. It's more expensive to create electricity. It's been hotter, right? We know that. There's been less problems with hurricanes, knock on wood, here in Florida. But when you
Mhm.
see those kind of things, you got to take those trends, you got to take that news, that knowledge that you have on the outside world, and apply that to the stock market. But to me, when it comes into it, and here we are in, August the 5th, we're looking at September, right? And September is the opposite of planting. Now we have to harvest that stuff. And so when we look at the ag side of things, I'm interested in that. I'm interested. You know what? When you see the stock market, guess what? You're worried about interest rates. You're worried about the financials. You're worried about euros. We just saw the yen carry trade come up. Guess what? That's also a future. We're talking about home building. Interest rates coming down. So people are going to be buying homes, and there aren't a lot of homes to buy. So you got to build them. Guess what? Copper goes into them for electricity. Um,
Mhm.
the biggest buyer of copper is for air conditioners. You ever want to know when the economy is doing really bad? Look at theft of air conditioners because they have copper in them, right? Copper. Look, I'm looking at copper prices, but we've had such a good time right now, weather-wise, in the Midwest. the breadbasket of America, that we've seen a lows in futures. And look, when I'm looking at corn and wheat, looking at their charts, and we can do that if you'd like. But
Yeah.
what's really cool is I know seasonality, things are going to be a winner for me. And I like investing in seasonalities because why? Because it's already kind of baked in. We already know September is a bad month for stocks. We know that they come down usually. I think we front run that a little bit at the end of August. I think people are selling a little too early, but we know that. That's fine. But seasonality in charts in ags are
Got
really good because ag is a cyclical thing that happens all the time. We know when to plant wheat, we know when to plant corn. We know when pigs and corn and soybeans and all the things that work together and feed and soy meal, all those things are all interchanged, right? So if we look at weather, and you live in Kansas, right? So you know when the weather is bad in Kansas or bad in Chicago, look at prices of ags. And so you can apply that to futures trading, right? So if you see in the future that the I don't know, maybe that's going to be a very warm summer and crops are going to die, you're going to start to see a price movement and you're going to see hedging against that. But all these big farmers, think of it like ADM and Monsanto and these companies need to hedge against their crops. So those are a lot of things that go into that. It's not just ags aren't just about what's the price of the futures. It's about how are we going to get the next level of that future. And so we've seen a really good rain, good quality rain, not heavy, or not deluge. We've not seen a drought. So the price of corn has come way down. And if you even love the weather, you should really love ags, right? Especially in trading them. What's really cool is the margins. The margins have come down. It's easier to trade them, right? And you're seeing a lot more companies like yourselves that are doing a great job bringing that data and knowledge to those traders. And so, look, I can show you charts of wheat and corn and saying, hey, you know what? We're seeing all-time lows here in corn. And you know what? If we see abundant harvest, great. But what happens if something happens? What happens if delivery of that corn doesn't happen? What happens if a train derails and large corn, all of a sudden that price goes up? We just saw in the futures of oil. We just saw where 5 major OPEC countries just said that they were not going to abide by their production cuts. Oil jumped from 69 something a barrel to over $70 a barrel. You know what that is in futures? That's awesome. And that's great when Lightspeed can take advantage of that news, apply it into futures trading, and create yourself some wealth.
I love it. I love it. And talking to agricultural traders within my inner circle, they also mentioned cattle, right? So
Sure.
it's interesting because you talk about weather, you talk about crops like corn. In a way, they're kind of like your plants, right? So they're not actually living, moving objects. But what do you have to say about cattle and the trends
Gosh,
of
here's a really cool thing that most people aren't seeing, and you're seeing it in my AI. Let me tell you about the stock price of Eli Lilly, LLY. Why is that affecting cattle prices? Well, what do cattle do? They're steak, right? Live cattle or feeder cattle. Obviously, you need feeder cattle, but live cattle is beef, right? You're seeing Eli Lilly produce drugs for weight loss, and these people are eating more protein. So protein is steak. All of a sudden, that's what I mean by watching the stock market, watching the news, understanding the weather, and see how to make a thesis in order to trade. And so in this case, for me, I have been long Eli Lilly because of the Manjaro and the wonderful drugs they're building over there. That stock price is an all-time high. But those people that are on those drugs need protein. And guess what they're going to do? They're going to up their intake of steak. And so the price of steak is going to go up. Live cattle, obviously, right? And guess what? In order to make those cattle bigger, they need to have soybean meal. They need to have corn. They need to have these are it's a cycle, and that's what's really cool about futures. You can create that thesis and understand the markets. You'll be a really good damn trader because you'll understanding why prices are moving and not asking the question, why is it going up so much today? Well, it's going limit up because there's a big rain in the Midwest. Why is it going down so much? Well, because there's a lot of it. There's an abundance, supply and demand in everything. So if you apply supply and demand into every part of the way that you work that down into the actual cattle price, you'll understand why things are moving. A good example of that
Right.
would be cocoa prices, right? Not too long ago, we saw cocoa price explode because of a weather pattern, El Nino, going into the Ivory Coast where they make cocoa. Guess what? That price went from 7,000 to over 12,000. I don't know. Cocoa's way back down again because the weather's back to normal, right? You watch the weather pattern, you knew before the prices started to move. And that's what's really cool. You need platforms that help you decide, news and help you understand the outside of it, but you also know seasonality. You
Right.
understand trends. And so, okay, so the trend's your friend. We know corn is cheap because the weather patterns have been good. We know that cattle are not moving yet. Okay, great. There it is. You've got an entry point. Now you know when to get in, and now you might even know when to get out. Probably after probably another few months here. I think that's probably a good time, right? And you saw seasonality, and then you can go back to our other charts and say, what happened the month of September for corn and cattle? What they've done in the past? Okay, they had a large weather pattern in the 70s. Cattle prices jumped up on that. You've got an advantage. And that's what
Mhm.
people look for in the markets are the advantages. What advantage do you have? And when you see that advantage, you see the advantages and others see the advantage, the prices start to exacerbate and move higher, move faster. So
Gotcha.
I do like that.
And so mentioned there's platforms that can help you identify the seasonalities, the trends. Would you say that is also what the aim of Quasar Markets is, right?
Yeah, totally. I think one of the cool things about Quasar Markets is that we have other companies that we think are the best, right? A good seasonality chart, great company is a company called Season X. And they look for those trends. They find the trends in the markets, whether that's stocks or futures. And we put that right in the platform, right? We allow users to say, okay, you know what? I want to understand the seasonality of charts. Right. I see the chart, but give me some ideas. We need idea generators. And I think that's also very cool, right? We have an AI piece that helps identify those things. We've got Trading Central inside the system. Obviously, Trading View is in the system. So taking all these pieces that I've talked about, putting it into one platform, man, that's the key. And that's very powerful. And then being able to execute those ideas on places like Lightspeed and learning from you guys, that is how people get an advantage. It is not by going to YouTube and listening to someone who has 1 million followers and has only been in the markets 5 months, right? You want to hear from people who've been doing this a long time, have produced quality products, and put those in the hands of people. They'll be a lot happier, I promise.
And so, say, speaking of the development of Quasar Markets, where are we at exactly with the timeline and the public release?
I thought that this was going to take me 3 to 5 years. We did it in less than 1 year, actually. So thanks for asking. I'm very proud about that. In my timeline, we're already into year 4. It's exciting. I have a great partner with Kiwi Tech, my development company partnership, and I'm friends with the owner as well, which is nice. But look, it's true. I think in life and anything that we do, it's partnerships. It's those relationships that we have, and companies like Lightspeed, I think that's a big key, right? You need to have someone, especially if you're a new trader or somebody who's been around forever. We still are learning. I think it's when you and I talked about, right? I
Mhm.
never stop learning. I think that's one of the cool things about futures and stocks is that you should, if you stop learning, just get out of the game right now. If you're not willing to spend 5 minutes to learning what the news is going on or to understand what everybody else is doing, then you shouldn't really be trading, right? You should probably let somebody else manage your money. If you want to be an active trader, you got to be in the markets. You got to be part of what we're doing, right? And you got to understand it. And companies like yourselves that bring people like myself on to help you understand. I think that's key to this whole.
Well, I mean, I think that's just a key principle of success at the end of the day, right? Because success is not something that you own. You have to pay rent at the top of the mountain every single day. So you
That's
gotta, if
absolutely right.
you don't show up and pay rent, then some other people can take your spot, right? Now, but Stephen, if people are listening and they're wondering, how to get access, is it a free public platform? Do they type in just
Yeah,
quasarmarkets.com
just
and
go to quasarmarkets.com. It's a free platform. Now there's ads on the platform, but my goodness, we got it down to $15 a month. I mean, my goodness, I tried to get it as cheap as I possibly could with as much quality data as I possibly could. I just had a customer 2 minutes ago goes, "How'd you get all that done?" I said, "Well, you know what? I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to get those costs down, and I wanted to pass those on to the users. A lot of times we're seeing it right now that the the costs are going up in inflation, but yet the company is taking all the profits. I don't believe that, right? I want to give access to data, like companies like yourselves, access to people, and make it cool, make it fun for them and interactive, but also learning and understanding what they're seeing too as well.
So you just go to quasarmarkets.com and you just sign up and
There's a
you
little
get
button that says "Get Started," and it'll walk you through it. In fact,
okay.
if you are a futures trader, it'll walk you through that. If you're a crypto trader, it'll say, "Okay, here's your layout for your platform. Oh, you like stocks? Here, you like options? What do you like? And you like your news?" And it'll create a whole platform for you. It is AI centric so that it actually
Right.
understands you. And I love that part of it, right? You don't have to go, "I'm lost. What do I do?" I don't want that to happen to anybody. I want people to walk in and go, "Wow, this is powerful."
So, Stephen, when you personally trade, right, every single summer, you're following,
Every single day. Right.
well, right, okay, every single day, but specifically on an annual basis, right, when you start switching up your strategies, do you find that in your portfolio of investments, you stay like you have a certain percentage where you stay consistent, where you're like, no matter what is happening, I'm trading the Magnificent Seven, for example. And then on top of that constant, because of whatever trends, seasonality, you have this Rolodex, this rotational
I
investing
have a
app.
favorite saying, Philip.
Yeah.
I ain't scared. Um, when you have an advantage,
Mhm.
when you have your thesis, when you have made your decision to make a trade, you need to know when to get out, right? One of the rules. You need to understand why you're in that position, and you need to know why you're going to get out. Don't let that change. Right now, I own Nvidia. I think the price of Nvidia is low. I think it's gonna go higher. Yes, I know the PE ratio of a tech stock. I understand it. I understand the run. I understand the split. But my thesis is that Blackwell chipsets are doing very well. AI is not. This is not the blow up. This is just the beginning of AI. We're going to grow bigger. It's going to get even better.
That's
And
true.
guess what? You're going to have to use their chipsets. That's my thesis. The
Mhm.
prices come down in stock. I bought more. Why? Because I believe in my thesis. It's the same thing. Or in seasonality. I know where we are in seasonality. I get it. Stocks go down in September. I think we're at the bottom. That's my thesis. It's the same thing when you're looking at futures, right? My thesis is I'm buying corn here. But why? Because I think the price is low. I think we're going to get a large. They already expect a large crop. Great. What happens if that crop doesn't come in as expected? Price goes up. And seasonality, the price should go back up. Why? Because as the supply wears off, and my thinking is not, I'm not buying a 1 week or a 1 month contract. I might buy D's corn, right? Because my thinking is, or I might buy March corn of next year because that make now. Here's what's really cool about futures. You can trade different levels of it, right? You can trade the March versus a December contract.
Right.
And I think that's exactly right. And now for me, my thesis here is I think March is planting time and December wheat. So I want to put a spread on. So my spread right now is I'm going to go long wheat here for December and short wheat in March of next year. That seasonality. I've created a thesis because next year is planting season, and I think that we'll burn through a lot of that wheat, cattle, feeder cattle, all those things. We'll be burning through that because I think it's going to be a cold winter. All of a sudden, I've explained weather to you. I've explained who's going to use that food source, and I've explained seasonality to you. And all of a sudden, that advantage gives you a better advantage when you're trading.
And when you said spread, right, just so the listeners, and if, especially if they have some trading experience, understand, are you mainly talking about stocks here, or are you still talking about stock options
No,
as
futures
well? Okay.
spreads, right? Yeah. I
Very
mean, I love future spreads. One of my favorite things to trade, right? I think because when you have your thesis, you need to understand what it is in the months that you're playing in, right? One of the
Now,
cool things about
now
futures is
I'm
that
kind of curious because and I feel like I have an answer based on what you said. You said, right, your core philosophy is you're not scared.
I'm not
So,
scared. I ain't scared.
yep, yep. So operating from that perspective, when you come up with a thesis, I'm assuming once you have your thesis, you're just going to go execute and then see if the market validates your thesis. Like you're not going around calling your friends, holding like, hey, I have a thesis. you know,
No.
I'm thinking about doing this before the market's actually whatever. What's your thesis? Like you're not
Well,
doing
I'm a
any of
little different because everybody knows who I am. So if I
well,
say I'm doing something, they're probably going to get into
okay,
it.
true. Okay,
I don't
well,
want to.
well, how about when Stephen Orr was on the come up, right? And you were trying to
Right.
validate
So
your thesis. Yeah.
yes, most definitely. I always invested first, right? And I always thought about that because it's my thesis. I invest. And I don't want to put anybody else in something that may cause them harm, right? And this is my own personal investment. But when as I've learned these different tricks and things of that, I don't like saying the word tricks, obviously, but those little things that make me a better trader.
Mhm.
I want to apply that. And so when I do my investing, and as a rule, I don't go full boat. So instead of buying 1,000 contracts on something, I might buy 10, right? But as my thesis expands and as Nvidia fell, I bought more. But my thesis hasn't changed. So I believe in thesis trading more than anything. It's what I've always said to do. I've been doing it for 30 years and it works, right? I I tell you that you'll have a I just want to win 50% plus one, right? That always makes you a winner, right? And as long as you keep your losses small and your winners big, right? That's
Yep.
the key, right? Is having a thesis and having all of that knowledge around it and creating that feeling and keeping that energy going. Because you know what? That's one of the things. Don't get down, feel good about it. Because when it's your thesis and your understanding of the markets and it clicks in your head, boom. That's there's not a better feeling in the world than you did it on your own and you made it.
Now, prior to Quasar Markets, right, where everything was just conveniently put into one link, right, one
Yeah,
platform, how did you navigate through, your research and feel in terms of like, okay, seeing there's information, but also having the discernment and ability to go, I feel like this information is right
that's a great
information.
question. I
This
mean,
information is misinformation because it's not conglomerated, right? It's not
right.
organized.
That's a
So
great question. I have
yeah.
25 screens around me. If you see me looking around, it's because I have screens everywhere, right? I have screens up here for season charts. I have screens up here for charting. I have screens over here for news. I have screens for Twitter feeds. I've got screens, everything. And all the news, the data that I need, it's all over the place. That's what I was saying. I want it all in one place and in the way that I want to see it so that if I want to look on my phone, I don't want to be stuck to my screens anymore. I want to be on my iPad or my
Yeah.
Oculus. We already built that out, right? That'll make you a better trader too, because now you've narrowed all of these screens and you're more focused, right? So I only want to trade corn right now. I want to trade this spread. This is my thesis. Here's all the news around it. Here's what's normally happens in the months of September. Great. Now I'm going to push everything else away and I'm going to focus on what it is in front of me now. And I think
Right.
that makes it a much better trader too as well. Focusing is always a key.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, that's huge. So, Stephen, thank you so much for your time today. I feel like we definitely covered a lot in terms of understanding what to look for, right? And how everything ties in together. You're obviously obsessed about trading and the markets, which
Love it.
is a fantastic trait to have to become someone great in your field. It's funny, right? Like I heard a great saying from Kenny Jet Smith, who's
Okay.
an NBA champion, and he said, "Those who are extraordinary simply because they do the ordinary extra."
That's right.
Right? And obviously, your dedication and devotion with 25 screens just goes to show that, right? And now, because of probably the little nuances, you're like, let's see if I can consolidate everything into one. So thank you so much for creating that platform. I'm super excited to take a look at it myself,
Yeah.
more because I want to just see how it's organized and then really pass it on to my traders. As you know, I personally, more so run the firm than actively trade at this point. But that the most important thing is cultivating skilled individuals at the firm. And so I'm excited to pass that on. And so, Stephen, if anyone is interested in getting to know you a little bit more, right, outside of utilizing quasarmarkets.com, what is the next best way to get hold of you?
Yeah, it's quasarmarkets.com. You can also see me on LinkedIn. QM Big Beat. You can find me on Twitter, same thing, QM Big Beat. It's very simple. And I guess what? I do respond to my emails. So Steven at quasarmarkets.com. Email me. I'll email you back.
There you go. What a accessible personality, Stephen. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to learning from you some more. next month.
Thanks for
Yep. Take care.